4 signs you might be saving too much.
Brian, I am so excited to talk about this because this is something that often does not get talked about. I mean, all the time we tell people that you need to be saving more, you need to shoot for 25%, or you need to exercise more discipline. But there is a certain sect of the population, a certain type of financial mutant out there that can take it a little too far. And fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of them happen to be in our audience. And so we want to actually speak to that dark side about how do you know if the decisions you're making are maybe working counter to what you ultimately want to be achieving?
Well, I really do think with what we do with the financial order of operations is a lot of systems out there are math only based. And math is important. Don't mishear us on this. But there's also this intersection of the math plus the mindset. And that's what I love is I want to help give the people who are prolific with their saving and investing, what's the why? What's the mindset? So you actually do this right and you don't look back 20, 30 years from now and go, man, maybe I should have lived a little bit more or enjoyed that season of life. I just want to make sure we balance out what people are working through.
And people might hear that and say, no, guys, I'm a financial mutant. That's why I save this. That's why I say this. But there's a dark side. We love financial mutants. We want you to maintain a financial mutant. But what we want to be careful of is that you don't turn into the financial miser, because those two are not the same things and they will not end up in the same place.
Now, don't overlook this, Bo. What we've put together here is that I like to say us financial mutants are maximizers, but we're not misers. Because, and look at the visual, all of my podcast listeners, you don't have the visual, so I'm going to build the visual for you. Just like a young Padawan Jedi, you want to avoid going too far into the dark side of the Force because that turns you into Darth Vader. And that's what we have, I guess, our royalty-free version of Darth Vader in this, maybe it's Darth Maul. We'll just say it's something that looks like it's gotten to the wrong side, the dark side of the Force. I want you as a financial mutant to stay on the strong, the steady, the good side of being a financial mutant. Don't go into the dark side of being a financial miser.
So let's walk through these 4 signs, these 4 ways that you can know, that you can be aware you're saving for the future. Let's dive right into the first one, Brian. And this one, again, none of these sound bad necessarily, but there's some darkness to them. The first one is you're only living for the future.
Yeah, this is a big one because I want you to enjoy every season of life. This is one of the things I talk about in my book, Millionaire Mission, is that every decade is going to have a sweetness. Every decade is going to have obstacles. I just don't want you to miss it because I think that sometimes when we're good with money and we're saving money, there is a tendency that you think, well, I've got to get to this point because when I get to $1 million or $3 million, whatever your number is, you think this is going to solve all your problems. I'm like, whoa, slow down. Make sure you don't miss life.
Yeah, you're hitting the very first problem is that you're putting off important memories. You're not doing things that you otherwise could be doing, and you are losing time, unfortunately, that you will never be able to give back. If you're only thinking about the future, thinking about far off, there are amazing things that you could be doing right now to create memories. But the good news is, they don't have to be expensive. They don't have to cost you money necessarily, but they are going to require some effort and some time to put into them.
Nothing wrong with bedazzling your basic life. Go create those memories. Do a road trip. Do some do-it-yourself projects if you want to have something a little bit nicer. Just don't skip it altogether and live this miserly life.
Another problem with only living for the future, thinking into the future, becomes a little bit more qualitative or quantitative in that you find yourself that you're retirement rich. Because I've thought so much about retirement that I've been doing IRAs and I've been doing 401ks and I've been doing deferred comp and I've been doing all of these things. And so my future self will have a lot of resources, but the problem is my current self does not have access to resources, or myself 5 years or 10 years from now does not have access to resources. It may be something that you want to rethink.
Yeah, if you're getting to the stage where you have big retirement accounts, but you can't pay cash for your next car, you definitely might be retirement rich.
Yep.
Or if you're one of those people that you start seeing water damage in your house, but you're so focused, you're like, well, I'll just push this off a little bit longer. there are things in your life, don't miss out on the moments. You actually need to actually have some taxable money. You need to spend some money on maintenance for your house and your life. Don't skip these things. And also make good decisions with your health. This is the other thing I think a lot of times, well, like I'll work extra hours, I'll make a little bit extra money. Don't put off things to the detriment of yourself.
So if the problem is only living for the future, what are some of the solutions? Well, the first is know what's important to you. There are things that very well today might be important to you that are counterintuitive to your future plans, like buying a home, starting a family, having kids. Those are all things that might make retirement a little bit further away, that might make the number you have to reach for financial independence a little bit higher, and yet they are still worthwhile. They're still things that may make sense to pursue. So make sure you understand your why and what's important to you.
Yeah, and then we talked about you need to experiment. And what I think about when we talk about experimenting, this is why in the financial order of operations, if you go to moneyguy.com/resources, step 7, hyperaccumulation, is helping you begin with the end in mind. Think about how you're actually going to use the 3 different account structures. You got tax deferred, tax-free accounts like your Roth accounts, and then you've got your after-tax or taxable brokerage accounts. All those things are going to help you fulfill your financial goals. Don't skip the step of actually knowing how you're going to use those accounts and what it's going to look like in the future.
All right, Brian, let's talk about the second sign that you may be saving too much. And this is a big one, and frankly, this can be a super sad one, is you begin to find that your relationships are struggling.
Yeah, I think it doesn't shock people that money is a big component. When you do the research, I believe that they have found that 2 out of 5 marriages end in divorce because of money.
It's money or finances has some issue to do with it, which is super, super sad, because money ought to be a thing that couples can talk about together that can be a positive, and yet in a number of circumstances it turns into a negative.
And it's a lot of times I think it's probably you don't have money, so there's fights over the scarcity of the money in the household. But we're talking about, I have seen situations where people are so good, and maybe it starts out as a joint effort where they're all, on the same page. We're going to be very organized. We're going to track, we're going to budget everything that comes into the point that we're actually going to keep our receipts. We're going to input our receipts in. We're going to know. But there does get to a point where maybe there's too much of a good thing. I've seen marriages where they've struggled because after they've reached some of their financial goals, one of the spouses is still saying, hey, give me the receipt when you go to the grocery store. Give me the receipt when you go out for your lunches. I want to just keep track. You can quickly see that maybe it goes into that financial miser territory where you feel the other person, your spouse, feels like you have your thumb on them at all points of their life.
And it's not just in spousal relationships. Another relationship that could be struggling is a lot of high achievers and hard chargers get so focused on career growth and financial growth and moving up the corporate ladder and earning the bigger income and saving more dollars that you actually begin to miss out on spending quality time with your kids. Rather than staying at home, you go to the office early or you leave the office late, and all of a sudden you begin losing time that you cannot get back. This is something we see all the time. If you are in a fantastic income situation, you're saving a ton, and yet the people in this world that you care the most about are not actually getting access to you because of that, may be a sign that you're saving too much.
Yeah, just like I talk about all the time when we say time in the market is more important than timing the market. Spending time with people you care about and love is more important than spending on all the things out there. So make sure you're getting that quality of time in with your loved ones.
And then the other thing that you might notice is it might not even just be familial. It might not be your spouse or your kids. You may be in that situation with you and your social network around you. You begin being known as the tightwad, and not in like the, oh, ha, that's funny, and like the, oh, no, he won't do that because he'll never spend money on that. That's not a fantastic place to be.
Look, now, I want to tell you, as a financial mutant myself, I get it. I mean, because you will get to a stage of life where maybe when you go out with multiple couples with date nights, dividing up the bill is always a weird thing anymore, because, well, let me say, because there's a thing where you throw out the credit cards and everybody just says, hey, let's just chop it and we'll all split it. But there is a balance there. I don't want to lose all my financial mutant skills just because we've gotten a little older and longer in the tooth and maybe the accounts are a little bit bigger. Is because, guys, if you're a wine drinker, be kind, because that's the thing that gets me. And maybe I shouldn't say that out loud, but it is one of those things where if you want somebody to blow up how you're splitting it, it's all my wine drinkers, not even the cocktail drinkers, because the cocktail can only do so much damage. But I've actually been on dinners where people were ordering $57 a glass of wine. That blows up the split a little bit, but it is what it is. I digress.
But that's not the time while we're talking about. We're talking about the folks who say, hey, we're going to go out to a nice dinner, but old Joey over there, he's going to order the kids' chicken fingers. Now, nothing wrong if you want the kids' chicken fingers, but if all of a sudden you're not going to eat because you don't want to pay for a meal, or you're just going to grab fast food on the way home, it begins to take away from the social experience of everyone else around you. And if you're doing all the stuff that you're supposed to be doing, and you're saving the 25%, and you're building your portfolio, perhaps you should reassess. Am I really sacrificing in the right areas, or am I allowing my behaviors to affect my social surroundings around me?
Well, and it also, maybe you have a couples trip or something like that, and everybody knows, hey, don't invite Joe and Susie Bob because they only do road trips while everybody else is trying to go on, to Cancun or something like that. Just make sure you're having an understanding of what is required to reach your financial goals versus just being a straight up tightwad.
All right, so let's talk about some of the solutions. Here's the very first one, and this is related to your spouse. Get on the same page. What are the most important things you can do? One of the most impactful things you can do in a marital relationship is communicate with one another. Talk about, hey, what are our goals? How are we going to achieve those? What are we going to save? Why are we going to save? What accounts are we going to put those in? So that way it feels like you guys are making decisions together and moving towards a common goal instead of fighting against one another, causing dissension.
This is going to seem a little counterintuitive. In the beginning, these conversations are going to feel like you're restricting. You're putting a restrictor on your spending, but you should be intentional about doing this as a couple. But I promise you, if you do this right, these same conversations could turn into conversations of abundance later on, where you're actually putting together 5-year trip planning goals and all kind of positive things. Just make sure you're openly discussing this thing, because these boring, mundane meetings to be disciplined in the beginning can turn into romantic date nights down the road if you do it right. Give a little bit a day for that great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a perfect dovetail, because our second solution is set aside time to make intentional memories. You just talked about date nights with your spouse so that you can have the financial conversations. But this might just be, hey, kids, I'm going to go into work late today, and we're going to go out to breakfast together. We're going to go this weekend and go for a hike. You figure out the ways that for the people that you care the most about in this world, how do I set aside time that we can create memories instead of just focusing on future retirement, future financial independence, future goals, and actually begin making memories today that future self can look back on and reminisce on.
And sometimes this doesn't cost money. I mean, one of the things I think about is, yes, when I then on the ride home talk to my wife about the $57 glasses of wine, it turns into, Brian, why are you so tight about things? Why are you worried about that? We love them and things like that. So maybe instead of the expensive date night sometimes, there's nothing wrong with being intentional about like going on a stroll at night. Yep. I mean, some of the best conversations my wife and I have is after dinner, we go for a walk around the neighborhood. I think about the fact that with your children, eat a meal around the table. They'll complain about it. I complained about it when I was a kid, but I'm telling you, that type of stuff is going to create these blossoming memories, and it doesn't cost a lot of money.
Yeah, if you find yourself in that situation where maybe it doesn't feel like the perfect financial solution for you, don't just say no. Try to offer another solution. If you're talking with a bunch of couples and they're all talking about they want to do the river cruise through Europe, and you're like, hey, I don't know if that's perfect for us. How about if we went to the Grand Canyon? Or I'm making something. You figure out something.
How about the wax museum or the ball of yarn that's a road trip away? That's not necessarily.
I would be, again, communication is key here. Be very open and upfront about what you are willing to do and not willing to do, so that everyone can be on the same page. Because what you don't want to do is be the fuddy-duddy in the family, in the friend group, that makes it less enjoyable for everyone else. But don't just be the killjoy. Offer up other solutions that might potentially solve the problem.
And I'm hearing, instead of no, maybe there's a Socratic method of asking questions to figure out if there's common ground on something you perceive to be extra.
I love it. All right, Brian, let's talk about the third sign that potentially you're saving too much for retirement. The line between what you need and what you want begins to get blurred. You become so focused on the dollars and cents that you lose track of things that you actually need to spend money on and things that you think you just want to spend money on.
Yeah, we put together a list because you could be a great saver where you are definitely taking that little bit of the day for that great big beautiful tomorrow. But if you're not asking yourself, hey, how do I de-risk my life? Do I need to buy life insurance, term life insurance for my loved ones? Do I need to make sure my health insurance reflects what we have going on in our life? I don't want you to be so good at saving for the future that you're not kind of looking at the risk of the current moment as well.
How about this? You refuse to go to the doctor because, it's just a waste of money. Or I'm not going to eat healthy foods because I can go get very unhealthy foods at much lower prices. Or maybe you say, hey, that car, it hasn't broken down yet. No reason will we replace that. And it actually turns out to be not a safe vehicle for your family. If you begin having those kind of conversations and noticing those sort of things, you may need to flip your mindset. I would argue those are things that you potentially need to do, not just things that you want to do.
Yeah, and this one frees me to say, a lot of times I say be careful of your lifestyle creep. But there is, I just want you to know this. As you progress through life, as the decades go, your lifestyle is going to expand.
Sure.
I mean, it's just a natural thing. There's a reason we used to talk about tight-wad nation. We were proud of it, but now we traded in our tight-wad cars because we know it's just not healthy to keep on that. Don't be trapped to where you're always being so tight or disciplined that you're not actually giving a little bit to the ones you love to create memories and do things. Now, look, for most people, we're only talking about financial mutants here. Most people do have discipline problems, but I think sometimes us financial mutants, we have discipline on the other side, meaning that we come off a little too tight. Don't keep it that way.
So what are some potential solutions? Don't cut corners when it comes to health and safety. Recognize what are the things that I need to be doing? Appropriate insurance, safe automobiles, appropriate maintenance on the things that I spend money on, versus what are the things that I just want to be doing? Okay, upgrading, okay, having nicer things, moving into luxurious brands. Those are not the same. So make sure you're realistic and you recognize that.
And we talk about, and this sounds so simple to say, enjoy your success. I think there's nothing wrong with creating educational opportunities. You know, if you want to help out with education needs of loved ones, I think there's nothing wrong with creating blossoming memories. Look, we know the research. If 80% of millionaires are first generation, that means the stats show it 70% is gone by generation 2, 90% is gone by generation 3. You might as well be a part of how you're going to spend your money. Make those great memories. Take the family on vacations. Do things to encourage education. Be part of that. And then also, Bo, what are our thoughts when people get pay raises? Is there a balanced way on how to do this?
Yeah, so I feel like what people often do is one of two things. They get a pay raise and either all goes to lifestyle or all goes to savings. I would argue that neither of those are probably prudent at the extremes. What I would say, if you get a pay raise, there's nothing wrong with, okay, I want to take 60% of that increase and that's going to go to increased lifestyle, but 40% is going to go to increased savings, or maybe it's the other way around for you. But that way, not only are your savings and your behavior increasing, but so too is your lifestyle, so that you can begin enjoying some of the fruits of the hard work that you've been doing thus far in life. All right, Brian, so we've talked about 3 of the 4 signs that you may be saving too much. And this is an interesting one because, again, I think this is unique to our audience, but you need to recognize if you've surpassed your financial goals, you already know that you've hit your number and you've done the things that you're supposed to do and you're where you're supposed to be at, and yet you're still not saving. You've not been able to flip that switch over to consumption. It may be a sign that you're saving too much.
Now, look, I want to make sure we're clear. I want people to do the work, meaning you actually have calculated, and this is why we did the course and the tool, Know Your Number.
That's right, yep.
It's because you do need to figure out, are you ahead of the curve? Are you behind the curve? If you're on the curve. But if you do a full analysis and you look at your life and you're not going to run out of money, but yet you're still living this miserly life where you're not making memories, you're not doing anything, use this as a wake-up call.
I tell you, one of our favorite things, in our day jobs, we get to be fee-only financial advisors. And people always think that what a financial advisor does is tell you, save more money, invest more. And while that's part of it, I would argue one of our favorite things in the world to do is when a client does get to financial independence, we get to be that voice of reason that says, hey, it's okay. Yes, you can buy the new car. Yes, you can go on the trip. Yes, you can do the home renovation. Yes, you can fill in the blank. You'd be amazed at how many times it is such a struggle to tell a client, hey, how about we just turn on an automatic paycheck for you where every month you have an extra $500, an extra $1,000 hit your account. Let's just try it on for size and see how it works. Just like saving was a skill that you had to get better at, consumption is also a skill that some people actually have to learn. And you've spent your entire life, your entire career being a saver. At some point, you're going to want to figure out, how do I get to enjoy the fruits of all that hard work that I did? Because unfortunately, if you don't spend it, the statistics show, you already said them, second and third generation, going to have no problem doing it.
Yeah, that's why I like to say we're spending coaches. I think it's the perception is your advisor is going to say no to everything. In reality, it's one of my favorite parts of my job is I love helping people live their best life in retirement.
So what can you do? Know where you are and know where you're going. The only way to know that if you've reached the financial independence point, the only way to know that you are at that abundant stage is to really understand, okay, where am I? Do I have enough that's going to provide for me for the rest of my life? Given the unknown unknowns, have I stress tested? Have I gone through the work necessary to know? If you've not done that yet, you can't say I'm at that place. But if you have done it, that's when you should probably start to think through adjusting your behavior.
Well, I love that you just said stress test the plan. Because look, there's nothing wrong with using the 4% rule, even our know your number. Those are great planning tools, especially while you're in the beginning stages where you are trying to figure out you're ahead of the curve, behind the curve, or right on the curve. But once you actually have to start living off this money, you don't want a napkin financial plan. Right. You actually want to know, hey, is this okay? Because I might be walking away from a really great income. And once I cross this threshold, I can't exactly get back. And there's a chance I've only done one retirement. I'd like to get somebody who's done this maybe hundreds, if not thousands of times as a firm. So I have some experience and I know what I'm getting myself into. Don't skip the step of maybe going beyond the napkin plan and actually doing a full financial plan or a stress test. This is a great time to maybe take the relationship to the next level.
Now, as a cautionary tale, one thing that we see all the time and we would caution you against is don't get out ahead of your skis. And this is what we mean by that. We see so many times somebody who will be in their late 20s, early 30s, mid-30s say, hey guys, I've done the math. I've been saving diligently. I'm going to continue saving for the next 30 years. And on paper, my spreadsheet tells me that when I get to retirement, I'm going to have $30 million and I'm never going to spend that. So I feel like I'm at financial independence. On paper, it sounds pretty good and it looks pretty good, but you're not there yet. So be careful arriving at the conclusion that all the hard work has been done when you haven't actually done the hard work yet. There's nothing wrong with having a projection and moving along in your projection. But you need to be closer to the finish line and the starting line before you begin changing behavior.
What also is what's on the net worth statement, because it's one thing. I mean, you put too rosy of assumptions. There's a lot of financial content out there that you can, whether it's goosing the return, if you put 12%, 15%, or if it's you make the safe withdrawal rate 8%, or you see all kind of those things can make you feel way more comfortable, and that's fine. Maybe if you need some motivation, if you're putting, but when it comes to actually having the money underneath you and on the net worth statement, you've got to be somewhat conservative, because once again, you're going through a threshold of change that you got to measure twice, cut once, because you can't get the water back up the hill. So you want to make sure you're on solid ground, not off some rosy projection that may or may not work out.
Now, if you want some help figuring, okay, am I on track, or do I know if I'm moving through the correct milestones that I want to be moving through? We actually just did a show titled, Are You on Track to Becoming a Multimillionaire? This is where we lay out a number of financial milestones. So if you want to know where you are and are you hitting these milestones, we would encourage you, go check that out. And that will let you know, am I doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing? Am I out ahead of my skis, or have I actually hit the markers that I'm supposed to be hitting along my financial journey. Go check that out if you've not had a chance to listen to that yet.
Guys, we've had a blast creating this content for you. If you go to moneyguy.com/resources, you can check out all the free stuff we love to load you up on. If you go to learn.moneyguy.com, we have some courses, we have some tools that will accelerate your journey. Our big thing is we want you to do something. Wasting time can be more expensive than wasting money. So make something happen today. I'm your host, Brian Preston. Bo Hansen, Money Guy team, out.